Good evening everyone, welcome to Game 1 of the 2013 US vs UK Internet Scrabble Tournament, a best of 9 series with 3 players from each country taking part. Tonight we have John O'Loughlin of the US versus Brett Smitheram of the UK, both outstanding players who have represented their countries at many World Championships. The match is about to start, so let's join the action. And we're off. It's John to go first. That's a pretty promising rack. Good balance of vowels and consonants. He has Mafia and Maftir, as Mr. Brain has pointed out. Both pretty good moves. Mafia would leave RT and Maftir just the R. So not much between those. RT is a good leave, it has synergy. Can't see any 7-letter bingos with this rack. Now looking at the ratings, 1745 to John and 1919 to Brett. I think it's pretty misleading. Those are ISC ratings and don't reflect tournament performance. I think they're probably fairly evenly balanced. John plays Maftir and Brett has, well, that looks pretty promising. There could well be a bingo here. And already a railbird has spotted unatoned through the T of Maftir. But is there anything else? I'm not sure about unmoaned. If unmoaned is good, that plays in column 4 and would get doubled. And unmoaned is good. Great. Well done to Brett. And John has a problem rack. He has 6 vowels, including 3 O's, no high point tiles. This is likely to be close to being change-worthy. But I imagine John is going to look around and see what the best he can do with this rack. But this is pretty grim stuff. It's just the sort of rack you don't want to have. I'm looking on the right-hand side for any good suggestions from the railbirds, and nothing is coming up yet. So we could well be seeing a change here. I suppose Olio would leave AOU. If that could score 15 or more points, it might be better than changing. And that does actually play at K5 down. 17 points. Well, John has changed 5. I think that's fine. If Olio was better, it was only slightly better, and it was probably not better since John is behind. It's important that he comes back to bingo. Now, this looks pretty promising. And, yeah, our railbirds have spotted Ugamis through the I of Maftir. That's a great spot. And that word takes a Z at the front for Zugamis. So that'll be an interesting hook to keep our eyes on. And Morages also playable through the R of Maftir. Now Ugamis is going to be better because Morages allows parallel plays in column 8 through the triple word squares. And I don't think there's going to be very much difference in score between Morages and Ugamis. Great. One of the railbirds, TWQ, has indicated that he'll be quackling the game at the same time, so hopefully he will contribute the results of his quackling. And John has done well with his change. He's drawn a blank. He's got a balanced rack. I'm fairly sure there is going to be playable bingos here. I can't see one with the blank as a Z, so Zugamis is going to have to wait for a bit. I think Swiple is good, in which case Swiples will be good, which pluralizes Maftir. Just going to check that. I've got Zizivar open on my netbook, and Swiples is good. Great, so Swiples and Maftirs. And there probably are others. There are all the floaters in Ugamis. And a couple of floaters in Unmoaned. So what's been spotted by our observers? Oh, well, Wimples, of course. An even commoner word than Swiples. Not that Swiple is common at all, but Wimples is. So this really illustrates why changing was such a strong option. John is behind. He absolutely needed to come back as quickly as possible, and playing your way through a vowel-heavy rack is not as good as jettisoning the problem tiles and hoping for a good pickup. Now with a bingo here, John can be back to within 30 points of Brett. So the two options being considered are swiples and wimples. I'm just wondering if there are any other options in terms of where they can play. Now, what I am going to do with my little netbook is see what other bingos are playable. There's nothing through the O. There are 10 8-letter bingos with this rack. Palewise, wasp-like, pinwales, slipware, sweetlip, wimples with an H, whipless, wisp-like, pin swell, and swipples with double P. So sweetlip would play in row L through the E of moan. That would be quite neat. And I'm not sure that any other bingos play, so we'll have to see what John does. He's taking his time with this move. Now ordinarily in face-to-face tournaments players have 25 minutes. We're playing this tournament with 20 minutes on the clock. That's partly to make it more exciting and dynamic, and it's partly because the players on the internet are spared a lot of the admin involved in writing down the score and tile tracking. So 20 minutes on the internet, you could argue, is equivalent to 25 minutes in a face-to-face tournament. There goes swiples. And now it's Brett who's got vowel problems. He's got 5 vowels, not as bad as John's situation because his duplicate tiles are the E rather than the O, and the V goes quite well with duplicate tiles and is in any event a high-scoring tile. So Brett ought to be able to play through this. Pretty certainly does not have a bingo with this rack. Certainly nothing's been suggested. Eve is good, E-A-V-E, that would leave E-I-L. Certainly sort out the rack, but there may not be a great place to play that. Now, John's play of swiples is being questioned on the grounds that wimples scores more. One reason for playing swiples rather than wimples is that swiples provides more floaters. Wimples takes out the floaters and oogamies, whereas swiples provides additional floaters, and John is behind, so it's in his advantage to have an open board. And I suspect the score differential was fairly small. Just working it out. 33, I think. 83 versus 76. Okay, there might have been 7 points, but I still think the floaters merit John's play. Maybe our Quackler will contribute a comment on that. Now, we do have a suggestion for this rack, which is Villy, and that's nice through the L of swiples. V-I-L-L-A-E, doubling the V and then doubling the word. 26 points, and that would leave a rack leave of double E, which it's not the greatest rack leave, but it's not a disaster. Do keep track of the comments down the right, people. There's a lot of good players watching this game, and they're making cogent observations. I probably won't have opportunity to read or note or comment on all of them. Now, Brett has got 16 minutes left, John 14 and a half. So they're okay for time, but the time does go down quite quickly, and if they get a really gnarly rack, it's easy to spend 2 or 3 minutes, especially when you know that a lot of people are watching and will know if you have made a mistake. But I can't see anything Well, it's not a but because it doesn't follow from my previous comment, but Vili was suggested earlier, and I can't see any better moves being suggested. Veal is good, V-E-A-L-E, but not as good as Vili in terms of score. Great, good spot. Now, John has gone from a vowel heavy rack to a slightly consonant heavy one. He's got the I and the G, but there isn't an N in the right place for an ING ending. So I do not think that John has a playable bingo with this rack, and he has the problem of no high scoring tiles and a triplicate T. So although this rack is fairly easy to resolve in terms of leaving a good rack leave, it's very difficult to score well in achieving that end. So what's John going to do? He's 56 points behind, which means he's not out of sight. But he's going to struggle to score well with this rack, and if Brett then does score well even without a bingo, John's likely to find himself a bingo behind. John's got the advantage that the board is still open. There are plenty of floaters, and there are bingo lanes for... Well, I was going to say bingo lanes for 7-letter words, but there's not actually that many, because Vili does not take a hook at the end. So we're probably looking at column 3 for a 7-letter bingo lane, or a 7-letter bingo lane, and that is not an available lane for a bingo ending in S. So maybe this board is deceptively open. A gate is being suggested with double T at C5 down, gate and ut. Only 14 points, and John has played tilt for 20, and that's good. He's sorted out his triplicate T, and by playing tilt, he's opened up a bingo lane in column 12 for a 7-letter bingo ending in an S. Now, that's not overwhelmingly popular, but I think it has a lot of merit, and I think the rack lead was pretty good. Back with Brett. That looks pretty good. Through an R, he would have re-poured. Let me just see if there are any other bingos. There's no 7s. Yeah, re-poured, recouped, and doozy per with a blank as a Z. That would be pretty splendid, but the Z isn't out yet. So we're looking for a floating C or an R, and there's neither. So Brett is not going to be bingoing with this rack. He does have the P for score, and it's a nice balance of vowels and consonants, so he ought to be able to score well. Now he could play poor in column 9, parallel to Ugamis, and that has the plus point of taking out the floaters in Ugamis. It's in Brett's advantage to close the board down because he is ahead. And poor would score pretty well. Rack leave of DEE is not great. Duplicate tiles, vowel preponderance, but it scores well and it takes out floaters. Now the railbirds are suggesting that target would have been better than tilt. Not quite sure whether that's being considered, probably in row E through the G of Ugamis. Now Brett has played dupe. Yeah, that's fine. Keeping OER. And this is a fabulous rack for John. He played tilt, and he has got a great rack. He is definitely bingoing here. Gratiné is being suggested through the E of Vili. That would be doubled. That's a great move. That's going to bring John right back into this game. So a fabulous pickup for John. The play of when he played tilt, his rack looked unpromising, little opportunity to score, and he made a great play or a good play in tilt, and he's been rewarded with Gratiné. Brett has would have Plaukia through a P. It's a nice rack. Even if there isn't a bingo, he ought to be able to score reasonably well, and he is now 7 points behind, so this is quite a neck and neck struggle. No 7-letter bingos with Brett's rack, and Plaukia is the only 8. Now I suspect Brett is going to be looking at H12 to see if he has a play with the K next to the A of Gratiné. And Mr. Brain has pointed out that Kale is playable for 30... is it 39 points or 36? 39. That would be... Well, that would leave Euro, which it isn't too bad. When you're talking about scores around 39 or 40 points, you're talking about two-thirds of a bingo, so even if the rack leave is poor, a play with that number of points is certainly worth considering. And also being considered in the same spot is K, spelled K-A-I-E. That would leave L-O-U-R. Yeah, I think either of those plays is pretty good. Now, just reading through the comments and the reference there to an O setup, I have, and the reference to being unlucky, I'm not sure what is being referred to there. Well, Kaylee or Callie, same as Kale. Pretty good score. Brett now retakes the lead. He is 32 points ahead. John has got pretty good rack. He drew seven tiles, and it's looking pretty balanced. Not sure there is a bingo playable, but he does have the H for score. So I suspect he's looking to play off the U and the H and maybe one more vowel. So, where's he going to do that? Hoa is good. That can play in column 7, but it takes out floaters. Madhouse would be playable through an M. There isn't one. Let's just see what other 8s are available. Okay, just Madhouse and Seahound. Seahound would be through an N. Suffed or Sowed, 48 points. That's pretty impressive. Not a bingo, but a great score. Double-double. And this looks pretty good for Brad. He's got the U with the Q. And the rest of the rack looks pretty good. So even if he hasn't got a bingo, I suspect he hasn't, then there may well be a good opportunity to score. There's quote at D1 across. That would be good. 50 points. And not too dangerous. Placing a Q in a triple word square lane is not that dangerous, because there are a few bingos which use it, and your opponent really needs a U to take advantage. Now we're getting some good racks tonight. 34 point spread at the moment, so very close with John, who's 34 points behind on turn. And people are suggesting Oxygen. Xenogamy would be playable through an M. There isn't one. So, is Oxygen... well, Oxygen is playable in row C onto the O of Oogamies. And that's going to be a big score, about 40 to 45 points. Which is just what John needs to stay in this game. It does take out floaters, but the players right now are pretty much neck and neck. So, tight or open board, advantages or disadvantages, both of them. Now, people are saying the Z's a biggish tile. I don't know if that's just because of the Zoogamies hook, or whether there are other places for it. Still a blank unseen. There are 26 tiles unplayed. Well, 26 tiles in the bag. So is there something better than Oxygen? Just going to work out what that scores. 50 points, pretty good. But the X can also play at F10 and F6 on a triple letter square, but I'm not sure that there is the ability to get that triple twice, because John does not have an I or a U. If he had an I, he could play XI at F10. But Oxygen is good because XI would still only score around 50, and Oxygen has the advantage of playing off the Y as well as the X. The Y is not a bingo-y tile, so it's not one you want to leave hanging around on your rack. Now, there are bingo lanes available on this board, not as many as earlier, but certainly the eye of Kaylee is a pretty bingo-y floater. And if a player were to bingo through that, the player could well achieve a lead that they can hang on to. Now when... Foxy, only 33 points. That's interesting. I wonder if John has an eye on a bingo. He's taken quite a big point sacrifice there, but he's maintaining the O floater of Ugamis. Now Brett does have the Z. Now, although Zugamis has been mentioned by me and others as a hook, in order to take full advantage of it, you'd really need to reach a double word square, and that would require a bingo, which is unlikely. So Fizz is playable at B6 across. It'll be very interesting to analyse Foxy and Oxygen to see what Quackle thinks of that. Only 1 point in score between them. And they're doing okay on time, 8.5 minutes, 10.5 minutes, 3/4 of the tiles played, so they're not in time trouble. $44 points for Fizz, leaving a rack leave of Brett. I'm wondering if there are any other suggestions being made. Futz is being suggested. Well, C2 down Futz, 33, 34 points. Not bad. BEIR is quite a promising leave. Well, the argument is raging as to whether Oxygen or Foxy was better. Certainly I don't think anybody was mentioning Foxy until John played it. Now Fizz is being suggested for 46 points. I wonder if there's an alternative spot or whether I misscored. No, I think it is Fizz and Zugamis. Well, that I think is the best play I've seen. And Busker221 is saying that Biz is miles better than Fizz. Well, maybe not. I guess the advantage of the F is that it plays at F10. So by retaining the F, you're retaining that scoring option. It also plays at J14. Zybet is also being suggested. And playing a longer word has the advantage of increasing your chances of drawing the blank. But the problem with Zybet is that playable at B8 is that it provides access to the triple word square at A15. Fizz and Biz also provide access to triple word squares, but they're less accessible. Biz, yeah, I think that probably is the best play based on the consensus. John has not drawn well. Okay. Commentator's curse. He's got a nearing and played it. And that's a great spot. And that takes John into an 18-point lead, which is still pretty close with Brett on play. Brett has got the J, a good high-scoring tile. With the high-scoring tiles, you're really looking to have vowels to maximise their utility, and Brett does not have vowels. He's just got the E. But there could well be a good play here. There's the floating U of quote, a playthrough there, placing a high-scoring tile on the triple letter square at F2 would be good, but I can't see a play that fits the bill. Now Jeff A is being suggested by David Eldar. Where's that? That's going to have to be through an E. Well, I guess B10 down. 30 points. Yep, that's pretty good. Jet for 43. Yeah, well, that's good as well. And John has drawn the blank. He's got a promising rack. Does he have a playable bingo? There is column 2 parallel to dupe. There may be an overlapping play which slots in there. There's also row A overlapping the B. Whoops, sorry about that. Overlapping the B and I of biz. I think I was so engrossed in the game I forgot to move my cursor, hence the temporary blackout. So, does John have a bingo? With the blank as a U, I can't see anything through the Q of quote. Now, well, the observation has been made that tilt takes an H on the end. It also takes an S, so there is a bingo lane in row N through the S of swiples. Quine is being suggested. Well, that would use the blank as a U. 39 points. Well, if there isn't a bingo, that might be worth considering. John is 25 points behind. Quinnell is also being suggested through the queue. But if John plays that, he's burning his blank and he's only drawing a level. Looking at the remaining tiles, there's only 10 in the bag. Only 5 vowels. So, should John burn his blank and draw level? Or maybe open a bingo lane? Trouble with opening a bingo lane is that he'll only be opening one bingo lane and Brett can then close that down. Hong. Now where's that being suggested? Oh right, nice. Row F underneath the E of suffed. Hong. Over 30 points and it retains the blank. Yeah, that's pretty good. Ho, well, a similar idea, just retaining the N. And Brett has a very poor rack. These are really clunky consonants, and he's 4 points behind. Now he can play his F at C7 across, so he could play 4B, keeping 2 Cs. Not great. Nightmare for Brett is David Eldar's observation. Because look at the remaining tiles, they're pretty bingo-y. And even if John does not have a bingo, he is going to have a very flexible rack. And flexibility is one thing that Brett's rack really lacks. But he just needs one good play to sort out some of the heavy consonants. So 4B is being suggested at C7, but the double C is not great at all. Bocker is being suggested. I'm not sure where that... Oh, well, okay, Bocker row C, but 4B's been played for 41 points in column 2. Okay, I hadn't spotted that location. That is pretty good. That is pretty good. Gives Brett a 37-point lead. John has a fabulous rack, but does he have a playable bingo? Pretty tight board. Can't see anything through the Q, which is the obvious bingo lane. The first O of Zugamis is not really a floater, because to play a bingo, you'd need the word to end on the A of a nearing. Now, 3 tiles left. What is John going to do? He does not have any high-scoring tiles. He's got a fabulous bingo-y rack with no playable bingos. Now, there is the bingo lane through the Y of 4B. I'm sure a bingo would have been pointed out by now, but I will just check to see if there is one. And, well, there are plenty of bingos, but none of them... Ah, what about yearling? Yes! Wow! Okay, I hadn't spotted that. Maybe somebody did mention it. Yes, they did. Mr. Brain did mention it, and somebody else mentioned it before, but that is a great spot. Brett is now 46 points behind. He's got a nice rack, but it's the last rack he's going to have. The bag is empty. John has VIW and a 46-point lead. So this is not looking good for Brett. Because I don't think there are any bingo lanes open on this board. So I suspect Brett will be looking to see if John can go out with WIV, and he may not be able to. So there is a suggestion, can John be stuck with the V, which means that the V is unplayable, in which case Brett can go out at his leisure and would certainly win, but that's going to be quite tricky. Via is playable at C13 across. And is there another spot for the V? Well, there's Van at row D, but it's possible to block both of those. So where is the second out for John's V? Oh, well, Van in row G, so onto the first N of unknown. So there's Van in row G and also in row D. So sticking John with the V isn't going to happen, and the W is certainly playable in more than one spot. Yeah, OW is playable at C9 and WE is playable at E14. So this is not looking good for Brett. High score over 400, but John's on 449. Through an A there would be Carcassed, but all the floaters, all the bingo lanes have gone. And in any event, Brett does not have a 7-letter bingo. Ukria is being suggested. Not sure where. Through the first O of Zugamis. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not sure that's particularly great. It would be if, it would be a decent play if Brett had a further E. But he doesn't. Yeah. People are making suggestions, but they're not winning suggestions. At this stage, Brett's concern is to minimise the losing spread, which isn't a great position to be in. It's always more fun to be playing for the win. But you have to accept whatever situation you're dealt with in Scrabble and move on to the next game. It has been pointed out that Ope at L2 takes a C in front. I'm not sure that can be used to great advantage. Yearling was a killer play. Very fortunate to have a playable bingo on such an unbingo-y board. But even without that, the rack was sufficiently flexible that I suspect the game would have been close. Brett's got just over 1.5 minutes left, so this game is drawing to a close. Now, Cedar and Sock, where's that being suggested? Okay, well, I can't see where that's being suggested, but it certainly is playable somewhere. Well, Sock and Quotes is being suggested. none of these plays are winning plays. Now Brett has less than 1 minute to go, and he plays Doc, a d6, quoted and Doc. Now John cannot go out with VIW. And that's interesting. I wonder if Brett's made his play because he's found 2 spots to go out with his tiles. I can't say I've seen any spots, but Brett has good board awareness, so he may well have spotted something. Well, Scray is playable in row A, Scray and Ab. I wonder if there is a second spot. Well, not that I can see. So looking to John's rack with VIW, he has Via at C13 across. Is that the best he can do? That's 12 points. Certainly guarantee him the winner. Would take him to 461, 30 points ahead of Brett. Well, would that be enough? 30 points ahead, loses 8 on countback. Brett would need 22 to draw. Now, okay, well the Quackle analyst TWQ is saying that Brett's best sequence would have been Crew at F2, followed by ECADS. Okay. I wonder if Crew and ECADS is a winning play. I suspect not. Well, about 35 points altogether. Okay, interesting. Now John's got just over 2 minutes left. He may be slightly nervous given how good Brett's remaining tiles are. Certainly won't want to miss blocking a winning play of Brett's if he does have one. But from my point of view, I haven't seen anything better than Via, and I think that's going to be enough to win. Well, yeah, there goes Via. So that's a 30-point lead. What's the best Brett can do with aces? He spent quite a while over his previous moves, so I suspect he does know exactly where he's going to play. I haven't seen anywhere other than Scray in row A, and Scray in row A is not enough. Actually, Scray does not play. Okay. Maybe there isn't an out with this rack. No, there wasn't. Wow. Okay, and now John can play ow at C8, at least, or something better. Okay, John will be scanning the board, looking for the best possible spot for his W. When you've only got one tile, it really doesn't matter that the clock is ticking down. Yeah, ow for 9 points. That's the end of the game. Final score, 443 to Brett, 474 to John. A winning margin of 31 points and a 1-0 lead for the US in the first game of this best of 9 series. Let's have a quick look at what was missed. If I can do this with another person's game, I think I can. So, back to the beginning. Yeah, Frey, Maftir, and Mafia. That doesn't show, but Maftir was played. Unmoaned and Unatoned were the two bingos. Unmoaned was best. Whoops. This is where John changed, and well, you can get mid-teens, but you're always retaining 3 or 4 vowels. So I think John's change was best. Morges and Oogamies, those are the two bingos, and Oogamies was best. Here, Wimples, Swipple, Swiples, Wasp-like, yeah. Well, and you can see there Wimple did score significantly more than Swiples, but it took out floaters. Eve, Villy, yeah, I think Villy looks fine and probably best. Target, this is the play that was being suggested at H13, down through the E of Villy, and instead John played Tilt for 20. I think Grat has got a fair bit of synergy. Powder for 33, and this is where Brett played Dupe, and that received some criticism. Yeah, I think Powder's probably better, scores more, and Arachleaf's slightly better, but I think Dupe is okay. Great rack for John, several playable bingos. And yeah, all the best spots were through the A of Gratinay. Suffed or Soured is clearly best. And Quote for 50 looks best. This is where we were all expecting John to play Oxygen, and he played Foxy, 17-point sacrifice. Well, and a much better Arachleaf. Interesting move. Zit for 51 at C3, yeah, on top of the O of Quote. And several roughly equivalent moves, including Biz. Well, Biz for 41, Zit for 51. Zit keeps a B and an F, which is not a great pair of tiles to keep. A Nearing, yeah, an unpromising rack, really nice for John that there was an I available. And here, this is where, what happened here? Yeah, Jet for 43, that looks best. No bingos on this rack, but easy to resolve with a play of Ho, which looks fine. And this was the problematic rack where Brett played 4B. Not a good rack lead, but it was a good score, and it looks like there was nothing better. Great rack for John, and this is where he bingoed. And wow, there were other bingos. Row 1. Okay, well, maybe people did spot them, but I certainly didn't comment on them. But Yearling is the best bingo. Here, Brett played Doc, but the suggestion was Crew at F2. I am assuming that that is a losing play, otherwise I think it would have been commented on. But Brett was placed in a difficult position. There weren't any winning plays at that point. This is where, yeah, I think Via looks fine. And Brett did not have an outplay here. And our was best. So, very well played by both players. A terrific game, really close, some great words played. So I hope you enjoyed watching that. And we now move on to game 2 of this year's US versus UK Internet Scrabble tournament.